We've got the real reason for AJ Styles and Seth Rollins opening last night's Night of Champions event. A legendary talent has commented on potentially returning to the ring, and Vince McMahon apparently wasn't at Night of Champions. Stay tuned for all the deets. So last night was Night of Champions 2023, an event that had a bit of hype heading into it in certain respects, and in other respects it was a bit like, ooh, well, how's it going to go? That closing stage was absolutely insane.
Still thinking about it now, Sam, not because we're recording this.
Straight after.
Not long after.
No, it's definitely the morning.
Yes.
But the thing that kind of stood out to a lot of people was the fact that Seth Rollins and AJ Styles opened the event for the brand new World Heavyweight Championship, especially considering it being the new title. You'd expect it to maybe be on later in the card. It was listed as one of the main events of the evening, and instead it goes out there first, and it's just straight out of the gate. Now, apparently, according to eWrestling News, via Better Wrestling Experience, Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles opening Night of Champions seemed like an odd decision, but it has a good reason, and the reason is that Seth Rollins has been tied into the filming of the latest Captain America film, Captain America New World Order. Seth apparently needed to be back in the US like immediately.
Yeah, he needed to scoot on off.
That kind of makes sense as to why it would maybe get bumped to open the show, and I guess that it's a high octane match to kick things off, which wasn't exactly something that would harm the show at all.
No,
kicking off with a bit of a barn burner.
Absolutely not. I think sort of from the live chats experience during the watch along, the sentiment was, this is supposed to be like the crowning of a new champion. It's supposed to feel like a big deal within WWE. It did feel like a big deal when the two were out there in the ring, but maybe putting it on last would have made it feel more like a big deal. But I understand, obviously, why.
If it's logistical things like that, if you're in, a major Hollywood film, the level of attention that's going to bring the company down the line, the level of star power that's going to give Seth Rollins if he starts picking up more and more roles. Obviously, they're going to want him to pick up too many roles in case he leaves.
Let's not do a Roman.
But it's one of those things where you can't pass that up. So if Seth has to be back, he's got to be back. That might explain as well why Becky went on second
the next match.
So it's sort of that's sort of the reasoning there. But I think that you'll get back to Atlanta. You'll be back there. You'll be straight on set, knackered with his new title. It was great to see them though. Like Triple H come out, put the belt around his waist, raise his arm. It felt like a real cementing moment.
It definitely did. I'm looking forward to the matches that he puts on. Yes, like it almost feels like a Roman Reigns thing in terms of he's got the belt and now, he's off to go and do something else. But I feel like Seth knows that sort of thing. Well,
apparently it's already been kind of cleared with Endeavor as well from some of the stuff I was reading. They were aware of it in advance, saying you just shoot X amount of stuff. They know when they're going to have him and when they're not. So as long as they're kind of all together on it, then it makes sense, doesn't it?
It does.
But at the same time, we've got a list of producers here that came from PW Insider Elite for the event. So if we just run down, there's sort of a who's who of WWE producers.
There is.
At the event, but Becky and Trish was produced by PT Canadian Destroyer Williams.
Damn, that's a good one. Rhea and Natty was produced by Jason Jordan,
which was a very quick affair.
Very quick. I felt like I feel bad for Natty on her birthday, absolutely, but to make Rhea look still like a really strong, dominant opponent.
Yeah, she just tore it to pieces. It did everything it needed to do from storyline perspective. Dominic leaping into her arms at the end of it was fantastic.
It was.
Gunther Ali was Jamie Noble, obviously a long-tenured WWE producer.
Great shout. This one surprised me a little bit, actually. Asuka and Belair was Adam Pearce, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Lesnar Cody was Michael Purely Sexy Hayes.
Purely Sexy Hayes.
That's what the Pearce stands for.
Yes.
And Michael Hayes has been in and around the Roman storyline, so the fact that he's in there with Cody kind of, it means that it's sort of tying in potentially, elements of that.
I like it. We've got AJ Styles and Seth Rollins. That was produced by Chris Abyss, obviously. Park. Which, AJ again, Styles and Abyss.
He's just been going from strength to strength.
Yep, he really has.
I think as well, like looking at that match, when you see it as, a lot of people, it's a secondary title. Roman's got the 2 belts, so let's make a third one. I think this is the point now. The belt's on Seth. It's time to prove everybody wrong. Get out there and make that belt the most important thing. And I think that Seth is definitely the guy
Seth's
who's
the sort of person who's willing to do that as well.
And finally, Roman and Solo versus Owens and Zayn was Jason Jordan and Michael
Romo
P.S. Hayes as well. But keeping it with WWE, well, sort of ex-WWE. It's sort of the other side of the fence now, isn't it?
Well,
He's
it is.
Back to his old stomping grounds of Ring of Honor. A legendary talent in Nigel McGinnis sat down with WrestlingNews.co's Steve Fall for an interview, and the topic of his retirement from wrestling came up, and, you know, if he is indeed retired. Given that now he's moved into more of a commentary position, obviously when he came in through NXT, he was, you know, initially it got off to a little bit of a I wouldn't say rocky start, but it kind of slowly built until Nigel really fit well into that role. And I think that now he's back with Ring of Honor. It's one of those things where I think he's just a massive benefit regardless of what he's doing.
Without
and his
a doubt.
psychology in that position is great. But he said, it's a big question, isn't it, Steve? I mean, I'd be crazy to turn down that sort of an opportunity. But to be honest with you, I'm far more better used, I would say, in a commentary role at the moment. I don't want to injure myself. I don't want to kill myself, but if there was going to be the possibility of me wrestling again, like you said, you couldn't possibly write a better ending to my in-ring career. This obviously comes off the back of McGinnis teasing the fact that, you know, Wembley being announced, AEW obviously tied to Ring of Honor, the fact that, you know, this could be potentially the biggest stage for Nigel McGinnis to have one last match. McGinnis has in the past said that maybe, you know, if he was to ever potentially come out of retirement, he'd want it to be against Danielson.
Which makes sense.
Where's Danielson right now? This could all just align nicely. But again, it would have to be safe. It would have to be done in a manner where, you know, the utmost protection was taken, you know, for both parties, of course, but especially for Nigel. But I think it will be a beautiful way for him to kind of, if he wants to have that final bow.
It would be so perfect because obviously sort of in
front of his own country.
Like his last retirement when he did the tour and everything, it was obviously tinged in sadness for everything that happened. And like for him to, if this was possible, if he was able to get back in front of all those people in Wembley against Danielson, how perfect of a bow would that be on his career?
It would just be beautiful, wouldn't it? So, you know, fingers crossed there is a way that this is possible. And it comes off and it's amazing. But yeah, it's quite the carrot to start dangling there.
Yeah, it really
but
is.
He did sort of immediately be like, I think I am better used in commentary though. But
he could just use magic tricks. And
he could do the Booker T. He could commentate on his own match as he's doing it. Yeah,
he
fine.
could do.
But moving back over to the WWE side of the fence, this one stems from last night's SmackDown. Now, with it being a go-home for a Saudi Arabia show, it was, of course, taped last week, which gave them slightly more production time to kind of clean it up in the edit and get rid of certain things they didn't want.
Let me tell you, they didn't clean this one up, Sam. This is disgusting.
They didn't. They decided to get in there and just mess with it, didn't they, Andrew?
They really did.
What did they do?
Well, this comes from PW Mania. They said WWE's taped go-home show episode of Friday Night SmackDown saw LA Knight take on Rick Boogs in a fairly quick contest as the Street Profits watched on. But that wasn't the interesting thing, right, about this segment, because as Knight makes his entrance, a loud cheer begins.
Yeah, it's like, ah!
And then it's drowned out by piped in boos, and you can hear like the swell of the and then it's so weird. And there were
it's like all the air comes into the room and then just goes
all of a sudden gets sucked out. There were several fan shot videos that clearly show the response to be much more favorable for the star as well. Like Knight has been receiving some of the biggest pops I think we've heard for anybody.
We were talking about it on the news earlier as well. He wasn't present, you know, in person at the press conference out there talking, but it was one of those things where, you know, he was getting mega chants. Triple H was kind of just, you know, out there front and center, kind of like, we know, and the company is aware of the massive positive response. But I think this is just more in line with the fact that he is apparently still aligned on the heel side of the roster internally. And, you know, the angle of him facing his former partner, even though it's partner of a couple of weeks, you know, you kind of still need him to be the bad guy and people to be sympathetic toward Rick Boogs. It sort of makes sense, but it'll never not feel odd when you get these moments, will it?
Oh, absolutely not. Like, there's got to be he doesn't necessarily really have to be
Yeah.
a heel. They don't need to boo. They don't need to pipe in boos. Like, you can still be a heel and be super over, you know? And I feel bad for him. I feel bad that they're piping in boos.
His time is coming. I've got a good feeling about Money in the Bank. I've got a really good feeling about Money in the Bank.
Me too.
But closing this one out with some news again about Night of Champions. This is from Mike Johnson of PW Insider. It was broken late on before the show that Vince McMahon didn't make the trip to Saudi Arabia for Night of Champions. The source indicated to Mike Johnson that an office was set up for Vince in the backstage area at the event if he did make the trip. But it's got to a point where it was close to the show and it was like he's not present, so it doesn't look like he's going to be present. So Vince wasn't there apparently. Paul Levesque ran the show with Kevin Dunn, presumably in his usual location in production.
So.
But yeah, I mean, it's not out of the ordinary. We've heard that Vince is just going to kind of come and go, isn't going to be as involved. There was some touch and go moments where it felt like things were just going to go immediately back to how they were.
Yeah.
But it's sort of, giving Trips that bit of breathing room, giving him that bit of space to just run things. Again, the ending to that event.
It was phenomenal.
Absolutely wild.
It was really, really good.
Honestly, just unreal. So I'd say that maybe just less Vince overall moving forward.
I think everybody would probably agree with that sentiment. So, yeah.
But that's it for your lovely dose of Sunday morning wrestling news, which is a bit of an odd thing to say. But later on tonight at midnight UK time, it will be the AEW team's turn to do the live reactions. They're going to be covering Double or Nothing, and it's going to be a hell of a show.
It's going to be a hell of a show. They'll be crowning the new AEW Cultaholic World Champion as well.
They will be, and we've got Chris Jericho, Adam Cole, and Sabu.
Sabu's
I want to know what's
going
to happen there. I really want to know what's going to happen there. So don't miss it. We will catch you all probably maybe later today if there's anything else breaks, but if not, see you on Monday. Bye.
Bye.